And so then it's, the pressure's really on because it's such a big decision. And ultimately, after seeing the city, experiencing training camp and the coaching and the level of players there, I was like, this feels like a great fit for me. And so ultimately, I did make the decision to go there. So I looked, it was a 30-hour drive, and I called the coach back and I was like, if you're serious about giving me an opportunity and not just bringing me in for a weekend, and then throwing me out, I was like, I'll come, I'll drive. And it was a snowstorm that week too, but they were in third place at the time. So I was like, you know what, I'm going into a good team. And if they need a guy right now to kind of prove themselves and play some games, I was like, I'll take the chance. And then it came time, I got drafted, and that was super exciting. And from there, they sent me to Montreal to work with their goalie coach, Eric Raymond, who he's with Montreal now. And he was awesome as well.
We're really excited to have Kevin Resop join us today on the Goalie podcast. And what is really exciting to me, Merce, is that Kevin did not take the traditional way that most of the kids that we work with, their path is different than Kevin's. Kevin's been, a Florida kid going to Shattuck and then major junior and now in the minors in his development years going. So, Kev, first off, I want to welcome you to the podcast.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Well, we're really excited to start with moving from Florida, where obviously the goalies and the players from Florida, they got so much travel that they have to do to be able to find the games. And how did you end up going from Florida to Minnesota, a hockey hotbed, and into one of the most storied prep schools there is in the country?
Yeah, so, pretty much going into high school, that was kind of the point where if I wanted to really be serious about hockey, it was time to get out of Florida, to try to find the best path for me. I think it was my last year playing in Florida. We had played in a showcase at Shattuck. And obviously once you step on that campus, like you said, it's a storied prep school and stuff like that. So it was really cool to see it, be able to walk around and experience it. And then I was lucky enough to have a tryout basically where I went up with my mom, and we stayed, I think, for 2 or 3 days, got to skate, try out, like I said, and then also tour the campus even further. Had to do, I think it was like a standardized test just to make sure I could get in with my grades and stuff like that. And, I was very fortunate enough to be selected for the Bantam team my freshman year of high school. And, once I found out I was able to go there, it was a no-brainer.
But you're leaving Florida, you're leaving home as a band
Right.
to go. Did you like, I want to play in the NHL. I want to play Division One college. Were you like, did you have your goals up here? And that's why, hey, look, I'll move out of the house at 13, 14 years old to go chase this thing. Like, did you already know where you wanted to go?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, like growing up in Florida, we were traveling so much. So my life, I knew it was dedicated to hockey, and hockey was what I wanted to pursue. Like you said, keep reaching at the highest level I could, whether that was D1 at the time. And so for me, I think it was harder on my parents, obviously, because I was so young, moving so far away, and you're moving into a dorm, and you're kind of on your own at such an early age. But I think I was just more so excited, for the opportunity to learn from some of the best coaches and be at such a historic place where obviously so many players prior have excelled their careers there. So for me, I honestly think that was probably the most important, or one of the most important years of my hockey career, because I was 14 and moving into a dorm. I actually lived in a single dorm my very first year too. And when I first got there, I was like, oh, I don't want to live alone. My dad was like, this is going to be the best thing ever because you have your own space to take care of. And so I think it really helped me grow up, and become super independent and learn how to, not only take care of hockey things, but I also had to take care of school and make sure I kept up with school while traveling, while practicing, and which it can be a lot for someone at 14, but I think it really helped me grow up and like I said, become independent and very organized and stuff like that.
When I'll tell you, when I was a coach at Brook School, I was the head coach at Brook School. And you have the kids come in and they're all nervous about being boarders, and you got so many of them that want to be day students and just come. And within the first 3 weeks, they want to be boarders. Like once they get there and get going. And here's the thing that I found with the difference between someone like yourself, like going in and moving and boarding at a prep school, the maturation rate of a day student at Brooks versus a boarder, it's apples and oranges.
Sure.
And I was able to do that with Joey at Cushing. Unfortunately, my younger son Alex went to Phillips Andover, and we were in this 4-mile radius thing that they weren't allowed to be boarders, because even though it was only like down the street, I wanted him to be a boarder. And I believe a lot. And you got to know your own kid when it's time to go and whatnot. Obviously, you were, traveling so much, you were mature for your age, that you were ready to make that step. Merce, did you ever board? Did you ever billet? Were you always at home?
Yeah, no, it's funny you say that, because my dad one day when I was like 16 said that, like, we could have sent you to Shattuck or something. And, I was like, well, why didn't you? He was like, do you think your mother would allow that? Like, are you out of your mind? No, but to get back to the question, like, I billeted my last year junior, and then I lived on my own my second to last year junior, one in Philadelphia, and then I billeted for South Shore down on the Cape, actually. But two different experiences, but it forces you to really focus on what you want to do and what you need to do off the ice, right? Like, you're pretty structured when you're living at home. Like, mom's telling you to do this, dad's telling you to do this. When you're on your own, or even when you're with a billet, for the most part, you got to figure it out at that point, because your billet's not going to tell you what to do. They know you're a 19, 20-year-old kid. They're not going to tell you what to do every day.
Yeah.
Right. And then when you're living on your own in an apartment, like I was down in Philadelphia with some guys, you got to cook your own meals. You got to figure out what time you need to go to bed, make sure you're not staying up too late, make sure your nutrition's on point, managing that time, making sure you're doing all the right things. So it's definitely, I think it's super valuable to live on your own. I wish I did go to a boarding school, looking back on it a bit, but I think just given the situation I was in, it just didn't work out. But I think it's really cool that Kev had that experience, and that helped him mature so much throughout the years. And then going from Minnesota, he comes to Boston to play for the Junior Bruins for the 18. What was it, 18U, right, Kev?
How did that work? You're at Shattuck, and you end up going to the Junior Bruins, which is, you're going from a very well-known hockey factory to another well-known hockey factory. How did that all work out?
So when I was growing up, probably from when I was around, I would say 9 or 10, I got invited to play a summer tournament with the Junior Bruins, the 97 team they put together. And
was that a brick team?
Sorry?
Was that one of those brick teams? No? Okay.
Just playing the usual summer tournaments. I think we played one in Ottawa, or not Ottawa, maybe Toronto, Montreal. There's the Icebreaker in Boston, I believe. Those were usually played. So I played that first tournament and was lucky enough to keep playing more and more tournaments. And Chris Masters was always my coach. Peter would coach sometimes, but usually Chris. And so when I left for Shattuck, my brother also left in high school, and he came up to play for the Junior Bruins, the junior teams. And he was very lucky to be placed with an awesome family in Hopkinton, the Martone family. And so, he lived there 2 years, went to high school in Hopkinton, and they had two sons, one my brother's age, one my age. And so he was getting ready to go to college, so I know he was leaving the room he had here. And my second year at Shattuck, it didn't go the way I wanted it to, as an individual and our whole team. So I was kind of at that point where, do I go back and play U16 again, or I have this chance to come to the Junior Bruins, play U18. I also was, I toured BC just during a tournament.
Okay, so you were being recruited at that point, or you were on your own looking at places?
I was on my own, but this was when I was super young, and we just had a free day, so we walked around the campus at BC. And from there, I was like, this place is amazing. Like, I would love the chance to go here. So it was kind of like, if I come to Boston, I have a better chance of, maybe getting looked at by Hockey East schools, because I always liked the Northeast. And at the same time, I was like, you know what, I can live with this great family. I know them already, have a chance to take another step and play U18 rather than playing U16 again. So
who's guiding you at this point? Like, who's helping you? Is this you taking it upon yourself? Are your parents involved? Do you have a family advisor at this point? Like, who's doing this for you?
Yeah, I did have a family advisor at that point, but I would say it was mostly myself and my parents, obviously. And I just felt like maybe it was time for change. My 2 years at Shattuck were great. I loved every second of it, but I just kind of felt like I was ready for a new experience. And it was obviously going to an experience that would be comfortable for me, like I said, with the billets, but at the same time, I knew Chris Masters for a while, and knew he was well connected with Division I schools and all that. So, I just felt like it was a good opportunity for me to take another step in my career, play against older kids and stuff like that, while also getting exposure to the schools out here.
Okay, so at that point, you're thinking college.
Yeah, 100%.
So you come here from Shattuck, you're like, okay, BC, love it. And by the way, if you love BC, you'll really love BU. But it's just the way it goes. But so you come here, you're thinking college. You're going, if I come to New England, all the colleges are here, so on and so forth. I'll have a good chance. You're playing in a marquee program, U18. How did that year go?
It went really well. I was playing a lot of games, and we played I think that was the first year of the USPHL. So at the same time, our U18 team shared a locker room with a premier team. And then Chris would, let me practice with the premier team sometimes. So getting those extra skates again with the older kids was super beneficial. And, we would also travel and play other AAA teams outside of the league, so we were still playing, top competition compared to when we were at Shattuck, similar situation. And so, yeah, I had a good year and heard some things that colleges were interested in, stuff like that. So it was like, awesome, this is great. Hopefully next year I'll play on the premier team. And so then I was playing, I think, in one of the showcases after the season, and our coach, right before the third game, he got sick. And so we had this other coach come in, and he ended up being a scout for Halifax, the Mooseheads. And at the time, like I said, 100% wanted to go D1, knew nothing about the CHL, nothing about Halifax.
Yeah.
And he kind of approached me after the game, and he's just like, hey, we're looking for a goalie this year. I liked what I saw. Let me get your contact information, and, we'll keep in touch on the scout firm around this area. So it's just, kind of like, okay, it's cool to be recognized by a scout.
Did you know anything about Major Junior, anything at all?
No. So I knew only a little bit, because when I was at Shattuck, I had one of my good friends was from Newfoundland. And so he was territory for the Q, and he was fully set on going to the Q. And so I remember we watched the Memorial Cup game between Halifax and Portland. And obviously that was a big one because it was Seth Jones versus McKinnon. So watched that game. But again, I didn't even know where Halifax was. I knew nothing. And so this guy calls me, maybe a week or two after the showcase, and he's like, hey, is this so-and-so? And he mentions the other goalie on the team. And I was like, no, this is Kevin Resop. And he's like, oh, yeah. That's who I meant to call. I guess he might have wrote my number next to the other kid on accident. And so, I always think back to that. If I would have just said, no, sorry, wrong number,
Your life would have changed.
I'd be,
Yeah.
so yeah, we kind of just kept in touch, and he brought me to lunch a few times. We had a lot of long talks, him explaining everything to me, just to give me a basic understanding. And I think a month later, we had another showcase. The GM of Halifax came down, watched me play, spoke to him, and he was awesome too. And so I was becoming more and more interested, doing my own research online, where Halifax is, the league, everything. And so it kind of got to the point where he's like, okay, we want to draft you, we are looking for a goalie. We have this whole plan, with Fucali. We're probably going to trade him at Christmas. And then
And he was a stud.
he was,
Yeah.
one of the best players in history of Halifax. So
Yeah.
I was kind of, intrigued by the thought of, okay, learning under Fucali, and then, they're telling me, after that I could potentially take the reins. So I was, like I said, I was very intrigued, and then it came time, I got drafted, and that was super exciting. And from there, they sent me to Montreal to work with their goalie coach, Eric Raymond, who he's with Montreal now. And he was awesome as well. So I spent a week there, and I was thinking about everything development wise, and I was like, you know what, this guy's awesome. I think obviously playing in a league like that is gonna further my development even more. So then it was kind of time to make the decision. It was like, okay, you know what, we'll go to camp. And my parents came with me, and I was going to do the 48 hours just to keep my eligibility. And I think it came to like right after the 48 hours, met with the GM, and my advisor was there with me, my parents, and they were like, we want to sign you. And so then it's, the pressure's really on, because it's such a big decision. And ultimately, after seeing the city, experiencing training camp, and the coaching, and the level of players there, I was like, you know what, this feels like a great fit for me. And so ultimately I did make the decision to go there.
Did you have, when Halifax wanted to sign you, did you have any offers on the table?
No concrete offers.
Okay. So you weren't giving up something.
No.
Something else at that point.
Or so, the coaches with the Junior Bruins, they throughout the year, they'd be like, oh, this school's interested, or this school's interested, but it wasn't like I had
visits and communication and so on and so forth. I think it's so interesting with those 48 hours. So just in case you're not familiar with Major Junior and some of the rules that are currently in place that are there's a lot of discussion right now about Major Junior kids being able to play college, but Major Junior, if you go Major Junior, you're considered a professional, and professional isn't eligible to play Division I college hockey. In the tryout process, you are allowed to attend a CHL, Canadian Major Junior League camp for 48 hours. They can pay for your expenses, they can pay for your meals and your hotel and so on and so forth. After 48 hours, you are able to stay, but after 48 hours, you now have to pay for yourself.
Okay? Right.
And you can do that as long and keep your eligibility as long as you do not play in a sanctioned game, and that sanctioned game could be an exhibition game.
Right.
So what it really is, it's when you get down to that first exhibition game where, okay, am I going to play this game or not? Mm-hmm. And that's pretty much what it comes down to. But I think what a lot of people don't realize, Cap, like when you get to Halifax and you see the facilities, and you're what, 17, 18 at that point?
17, yeah. Just
17. Like, you're going, this is where I want to be a hockey player.
Yeah.
This is hockey.
Mm-hmm.
There's an arena, I don't know what, 12,000 probably they max out there, like the focus and the coaching and the energy and the other players. When you get on the ice at a Major Junior camp and you step out of a prep school or a USHL or an NCDC team and you step on the ice at a Major Junior camp, it's like, it's wow. So I can really see how someone goes there and is exposed to that and go, I want this.
Right. Yeah, and the thing I always tell people is basically when you're in Halifax and you're playing for the Mooseheads, that's their version of an NHL team.
Mhm.
Like the fans, the city, everyone treats you like you're, their major sports team. So yeah, the fans were awesome. I don't think there was a game we got less than 6,000-7,000 fans. And then, besides the hockey part, like I said, the city is just amazing. I tell everyone it's kind of like a smaller version of Boston where it's right on the water. It's still a major city for Canada, but everything you need is right there.
So did you get some grief for making that decision? Like
No,
junior Bruins, were they like, oh no, you shouldn't be doing that? Or
no, it was kind of like, are you sure you want to do this? I was just talking to this school, the other week, and
that comes out all of a sudden, right? Yeah.
kind of just, making me really, really think the decision. But looking back on it, I have no regrets. I absolutely love my time in Halifax.
And you were there 3 years.
3 years, yeah.
All right. So you do your 3 years. Did you guys ever win? Did you guys come close to winning?
No, so our first year, I think we were a 12 seed, and we went to game 7 versus the 5 seed, ended up winning in double overtime. So that was a big upset. And then we played the number 2 team, Moncton, and we were up 2-0, won both games on the road, ended up going to game 7 as well and lost in game 7 of round 2. So that was the closest we got. We were kind of in a rebuild the next 2 years.
Now, so you weren't drafted. Were you rated for the draft?
No, I don't believe I ever was.
Okay, so you weren't drafted. Did you play your age out? Was your third year your age out year?
Nope. So my third year in Halifax didn't have the best year. And then around Christmas time, they kind of told me, hey, like, we're going to bring another guy in. Do you want to be traded or do you want to, go to a junior A team? So obviously, I wanted to stay in the league. I asked for a trade, wasn't able to get one. And then, this is kind of a crazy part of my hockey journey, but basically I went to a junior A team after Christmas. I was there a week and I just, being there and experiencing, the coaching and everything, I just felt like it wasn't a good spot for me.
No, it must be horrifying.
Yeah. And it was,
Because you're treated like an NHL, you're treated like a pro and everything that goes along with that, everything's top notch. And then all of a sudden you're in a junior team that, it's just a whole different world. That must, in the middle of the year too, that must have, to get your head around that must have been really hard.
Yeah, it was for sure. And yeah, I went from, Halifax to this town in the middle of New Brunswick in the middle of winter where
Is that Truro?
no, it wasn't Truro. It was Miramichi, it was called.
I've never been there.
Right, yeah. And so it was definitely, a lot different, but for me it wasn't like, oh my God, this isn't a big city, like I can't live here. It was more so, I experienced my few days at practice and with the coaching and everything. And the team was, I think they were doing well for the league, but I just felt like no one took anything serious there. And I didn't really feel like, even though the team was in first place, that I was gonna, develop and enjoy it and stuff like that.